So here's the muffler that I have in the car now. It looks very nice, but it's not doing much muffling at all. So I'm going to remove this and replace it with something hopefully a little quieter. So I'm just going to start the car up, and so you can see what I mean here. So ignition on, choke's good, in neutral. So you can hear that that's quite loud. So on a long trip on the highway, which we have one coming up in a couple of weeks, that's just going to be way too loud. So what I've done is I've just gone and picked up a generic muffler with the smallest inlet and outlet I could get, which is 1.5 inches. But that poses a problem because the pipe on the car is 1.25 inches. So I've picked up a few random bits and pieces here that I hope to be able to rig something up that I can put this muffler in the car. It has an offset pipe on one end. This is the part number, and I'll put a link to this in the description below. So one end is offset and the other is in the middle. And so I'll just play with that to see how I can get that to fit in the space available and get it hooked up to the exhaust system. So before I can put this one in, I've got to get the old one out, of course. Now I'm not going to bother filming that. It's just one hose clamp and one little bracket. Okay, I just have the replacement muffler just stuck on the end of the pipe. And let's see if that makes a difference in the sound. We'll start it back up. Noticeably quieter. So a vast improvement. So all I have to do now is figure out how to get that permanently mounted in place. I think one thing I'm going to have to do is change that bracket there and flip it around. So instead of coming down in the middle, it comes down on the outside, so I can move this pipe over closer to the fuel tank. I'm going to give that a try, see how that works. And it gives me a bit more leeway. And so basically the idea is I've got to move this, the end of the exhaust pipe, closer to the gas tank. The exhaust I originally installed in the car was a little bit, the muffler was a bit short, and there was already a tab welded on, but it meant it was a pretty far back from the stud that's on the bottom of the floor. So I made this bracket, and this part bolted to the stud, and this obviously bolted to that tab there. Now the replacement muffler was quite a bit longer. So what I've been able to figure out is I'm just making this little bracket here, and this will bolt directly to the stud on the floor. And then I can weld it right to the muffler. So that eliminates one joint. And then this is the rubber bushing that goes on that. There's a metal sleeve in the middle that comes up from underneath. Let's see if I can get that just stand there with one hand. Yep. And then this one goes on the top, and that all gets sandwiched. And the bolt goes through with a big washer on the bottom. So I've got lots of room to get a nut through there. And so my next step now is going to be to weld that bracket on. So I've double checked that I have my little bracket in the correct position on the muffler. I've got my ground hooked up. I'll put a couple of tacks in there to start with, and then go test fit it back on the car. And if that's working out, and then I'll weld it in place permanently. I have the muffler all in. The bracket up top here is working well. My extension is working well. I have 2 screws I put Loctite on there as well. This joint ended up sealing up quite nicely, and it's good and solid. So, but before I put the car back on the ground, I have noticed that there's a slight leak, more of a seep from the fittings on the fuel pump right over here. I'm going to tighten those up because we have been noticing a little bit of a fuel smell. So one of the things this turned out is that the muffler is a little bit closer to the fuel tank than what I was hoping. So what I've done is I've picked up some of this reflective tape, and I'm going to put a few little pieces on the side of the fuel tank where it gets close to the muffler. So this is the stuff I bought as for reflective. I just picked this up off Amazon. So if you're interested in picking any of this up, I'll put a link in the description below. All right, so I've got everything back into place here. You can see I've got that reflective tape. There's two rows of it, so it goes up quite a bit. I got a little overzealous tightening this clamp up and broke the original one on there, so I've replaced that with a brand new one. It's actually a little heavier. So now that that's done, I've got everything reclamped up. This is ready to go. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining me. And don't forget to leave a comment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It all helps the channel out. I have to wait for 24 hours for that sealant to set up properly, so I won't be able to take it for a test drive for a bit. So come back a little bit later, and there'll be a video showing the results of that. If you'd like to catch up on the previous video, I'll put a link up in the top corner for that one. And if you'd like to see where this whole project started, I'll put a link in the bottom corner to that video. My name is Ian. This is the Econobox Garage. We'll see you next time.